I'm actually a fairly new reader. I only really got into reading early last year because I felt lost. Books became this place I could go into whenever life felt a little too noisy. I used to read when I was a kid, but life got busy. School was very demanding, so I just stopped reading. Then, when I finally decided to read again as an adult, I skipped fiction completely. I went straight to self help books because I had this idea that fiction was a waste of time. I was thinking, if I'm going to spend hours reading something, at least I should learn a skill or become a better person. I think a lot of us have been conditioned to think that every minute has to be productive. But then I picked up this book, Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. This book is about a man who wakes up one morning as a giant insect that it completely changed the way I looked at fiction. It's about a traveling salesman who wakes up and realizes he's become an insect. But after I finished the book, I couldn't stop thinking about it because I felt something. Because I realized that story isn't really about turning into an insect. It's about what happens when someone is no longer useful. Gregor spends his whole life working to provide for his family. Everything he does revolves around making sure everyone else is okay. And then overnight, he can't work anymore. And what's heartbreaking is watching how his family slowly changes. At first, they are worried about him, then they are frustrated. Then they start seeing Gregor as a burden, not as Gregor anymore, or even a person. He's something that's in the way of everyone. What hit me was not that they suddenly became cruel, it was how gradual and how normal it was. And I think that's what made it so unsettling because it made me wonder how often we value people because of what they do instead of who they are. Not just in families but everywhere, at work, in friendships, even in ourselves. Gregor was already trapped before he became an insect. His whole identity was tied to his job. His value came from providing for other people. The transformation just made visible what was already happening inside of him. He was already living like a machine. Once Gregor could no longer support his family, they eventually figured things out on their own. They found jobs, they adapted, life kept moving for them. It's uncomfortable to admit, but sometimes we carry responsibilities because we think we're the only one who can. And then life forces us to step away and somehow everybody adjusts. But I think the part that haunted me the most was the ending. When Gregor dies, his family doesn't really grieve. They they felt relieved, they moved on, life just continues. It's probably one of the coldest endings I've ever read. Looking back, I think the Metamorphosis completely changed my opinion of fiction. I used to think fiction was just an entertainment. Now I think fiction gives us a safe way to experience parts of being human that are difficult to explain directly. A self help book might tell you that your worth is not tied to your productivity, but Kafka made me feel what happens when someone's entire identity depends on being useful. And that lesson will probably stay with me far more than someone simply telling me what to believe. That's why I tell you now, don't overlook fiction. Some of the most important things I've learned about life did not come from books trying to teach me. They came from stories that simply asked me uncomfortable questions. And The Metamorphosis was the book that opened that door for me.